Having an amazing Monday and welcome to Reality Bang. I'm RJ Yohann, your host for the session, and thank you for tuning in. That's it. If you guys want to contribute our topics, have any questions, or just want to tell us what an amazing job we are doing, you can reach out to us at 6364252164. Now let's jump right into it. For today, we have a special topic on World Radio Day. And of course, we have a special guest with
you.
us, Mr. Prem James. Now, before we start, I'll just give a small introduction to Mr. James here. Now, Prem James worked in FEBA from 1972 to 1998. When he left, he was the associate director of FEBA. And he also worked in different associates, like in finance, administration, and programming. It's indeed a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's jump right into it. So my very first question to Mr. James is going to be, now, how has radio impacted your life? It can be personally or professionally.
Um, when I joined in 1972, we did not have television in India. So radio was the only means of entertainment and information for people. And in those days, we used to get something like 15,000 to 20,000 letters every month in response to the broadcasts from Seychelles to India. And many of them used to write personal information or personal requests, which probably they will never share with their own family members. So when I joined FEBA, I went only just to work there for 3 months because I had no idea of a Christian organization as such. I thought I studied for banking, so I wanted to get into a job in the bank, and I had to wait for 3 months to get my posting. At that time, I happened to join FEBA just to see what they are doing, but it really changed my life. I left the bank job, but to me, radio was a powerful tool where we cannot go. Radio waves can reach home in the privacy of their homes, and so that impacted my life because I knew that in my lifetime I want to spread some good news. I may not be able to do it going from place to place, but through radio I'll be able to do it. So I went there to help for 3 months. Then I spent 26 years. So you can imagine how much I fell in love with the radio work.
Yeah. So you worked for 26 years in FEBA, right? So my next question is following up on that. So how was your experience being with FEBA from that time? And could you tell us a brief history about FEBA from then to when you left?
Okay, so FEBA they built a station in Seychelles somewhere around 1970, from where their primary aim was to broadcast to India, shortwave radio. And in those days, I think to set up a radio station was not very easy or very cheap. It cost a lot of money. Even now, probably now the technology has improved, but those days, probably big transmitters and lot of power, electricity bills that they had to pay. But they had determined to start a shortwave radio station in Seychelles, 1970. So 2 years after the station was launched, I had the privilege of working in FEBA. And radio was at its peak, I would say, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Maybe a lot of course, when television came up, maybe late 90s, probably the radio listenership dropped. But radio was still a very popular tool for information and for entertainment and all. So I have seen one of the best years of radio in my life, and how, in a way, God has used this tool in telling to people the information about how we can live a godly life in this world, and through different types of programs that we have introduced. So we had different types of programs that we used to broadcast. We had programs for children, we had programs for youth, for women, and different types of programs, so that the idea was then how can we use this tool effectively in order to cater to the needs of people. So, and that's why different programs were being used. But in the early 90s, there was one burden was there was to reach the youth, the modern young people. See, many modern in those days, probably even true today. Some of them probably won't listen to religious broadcasts per se.
Yeah.
So we thought, how can we reach out to the modern educated young people? So we started a program called Network, and it was totally a different type of program. We had done some research to find out some audience, the modern young people, their thinking, what are the topics that of interest to them, and based on that, we started this program called Network, and it was an English program, and we had quite a good response. Many we had, in fact, remember meeting some of the listeners in IIT Kharagpur, in Kanpur. We went there. We had a meeting in a hotel opposite to the campus, and number of students who were studying in IIT Kanpur came, and we had a good interaction with them. So Network was one different type of program that we started broadcasting, which with a view that we need to meet the felt needs of the young people. How do we use the media more effectively in reaching out to them? So in that way, that we have very creative program. I remember from Chennai there was a um, group. They used to do the dramatized version. They will take the real life issue, family problems. They will discuss about it, and then the and also maybe help them to find their own solution,
Yeah.
but they'll narrate the dramatized version. See, radio is very powerful tool to stir up your imagination. Unlike television, where you just sit and watch the image, your mind is not working. But in a radio, you are able to,
Like
stir your
picture it in your
imagination,
mind.
picture
Yeah.
your in the mind. So some of these programs were dramatized. So people will, as if it was happening in their home, people will realize. So different types of programs we started broadcasting with the aim that somehow every program that is comes on the air should meet the felt needs of people, whether they are children, whether youth, whether women, or the older people. So our whole uh, what should I say ethos, and what though we all uh, knew that we need to serve God, but we also wanted to make sure that we communicate the message in a way that people can understand, and they'll apply those principles in their life. And over the years, I've seen a lot of people whose life has been transformed because of the broadcast that FEBA had over the years.
Yeah. So you have worked in the programming department, right?
Yeah,
Before.
yeah.
So for how many years have you been working in the programming department?
Uh, let's see. I may. It's quite a number of years now, but at least out of the 26 years, maybe about 15,
15 years.
15 years. Yeah.
Okay, so throughout that time, could you share like your experiences in, the production of various programs that you had, which you just explained right now?
So when I joined FEBA, I we used to, we didn't have this modern technology. The pro radio programs used to be recorded on spool tapes, that bigger spool
Okay,
tapes.
those big tapes to
Yeah,
take.
tapes.
Gotcha.
So we had to monitor each and every program before being sent to Seychelles.
Okay.
Okay. So what we used to do was, um, I joined to monitor program. So to listen, because I understand 5, 6 Indian languages. So I used to listen to each 15-minute program and look at whether they're technically all right, there are any gaps in between, then whether editing has been done properly or not, and also the content part of it. We on the air, we made it a point that not to criticize any religion, not to criticize anybody, because we want to tell what what God's word says, and
Yeah.
our job was that. So we used to monitor each and every program, and then send the spool tapes to Seychelles for broadcast. Then from spool we shifted to cassette.
Okay, those
So
small ones. Yeah.
the small cassette. So that for many years we were sending cassette tapes to record it in cassette tape. Then later on, I think after I left, probably they have a live link from Bangalore to Seychelles, or so they used to link up the program. I mean, the thing. So technology has evolved over the years, but um, I had the privilege of working with the older types of technology, with spool tapes and cassette tapes and all that sort of thing. Um, so it has been a fascinating journey, I would say, to look at the radio itself, how God has used, some years ago, somebody said that man discovers what God uncovers.
Yeah.
So, if you look at how the shortwave works, I feel that God has uncovered the given wisdom to man to produce programs, to air it, even with the television, the same thing.
Yeah.
So, the technology that we talk about, we should understand, though man invents things,
Hmm.
but unless the God gives them the knowledge and the capability, we will not be able to do it. And so,
Yeah.
in God's wisdom, radio has played a very important part in transforming lives and changing people's attitude and also behavior. I've seen some people who have given up alcohol just listening to the radio program. I've seen a girl who got married because of the radio program. We broadcast her testimony on FEBA, and somebody in Bombay wanted to marry, and then FEBA became a matrimonial. Actually, Mrs. Jesudas, who passed away yesterday, her husband used to produce a program called One Only Mama.
Okay.
So it was very popular in those days. A lot of children used to listen to that
Hmm.
program in Tamil. And yeah.
You actually spoke about the radio, impacting people's lives, changing their lives. So, what are some listeners' testimonies you can share from the production of FEBA, like from them listening to our radio, like our various programs from the radio?
Yeah. So when I was in FEBA, most of the response was through letters.
Okay.
Occasionally, we used to have these listeners' conferences, and
Hmm.
people will interact. But post FEBA, I have opportunity to visit a lot of places in India, and wherever I go, people always say that it was through radio that I got to know about God, and
Hmm.
so so that the impact immediately, probably even 15-20,000 letters that we used to get per month in those days, was no indication of how many people were listening to the broadcast. Okay,
Hmm.
there are so many people who were listening, but they were not writing.
Hmm.
Okay, and so impact has definitely been amazing, I would say, because people's life. I just quoted few examples of how even marriage happened because of a listener. Two people who listen to radio, they came together. But it could be other way around. People have left alcohol,
Hmm.
husbands and wife. I mean, they have reconciled as a result of programming that we have gone had. There are people who, at the verge of their on their deathbed, where they listen to the program, they have said, "I want to accept God and have a you know confess their sins and all that sort of thing." So it has been a. I think only in eternity we'll get to know the real fruit of our labor.
Yeah.
But I mean, as we go around the country, even in my new up the past role as the area director for South Asia for Partners, I used to go to many of the neighboring countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka and all. Often people used to tell me we used to listen to FEBA. They had no idea that I worked in FEBA, but but they were able to tell that they benefited from all the broadcast part of it. Yeah.
So earlier back in the day, like when you used to receive these tapes and all of that, like you used to send the tapes to a certain station, right? From there, how did it used to, spread? Like I'm not talking about only in India, I'm talking about the surrounding nations, like around India.
How did the radio programs
Yeah.
reach them,
Yeah.
people?
Yeah.
Yeah, so shortwave is it has a lot. Say, unless medium wave and FM, FM has a very narrow reach.
Okay.
FM stands for frequency modulation, which has a very narrow reach. Medium wave also has a little bigger reach than the FM.
FM. Yeah.
But shortwave has a hop. It hops from they're like three hop, two hop signal
Yeah.
from Manila. It used to be three hop to India, but Seychelles was a single hop signal going to ionosphere and rebounding to Earth.
Okay.
So it covers the footprint was whole of South Asia. The broadcast that was coming in some areas, hilly areas, it was weak. Plain areas, it used to be signal. We used to monitor. I also did that job, reception monitoring.
Okay.
We used to listen to every broadcast that used to come, and in Bangalore, we had a different type of instrument to measure what was the signal strength. you know. So every day's broadcast we used to record and send it to the engineers in Seychelles to see how the signal is working. Some days it used to be good, 4, some days 2, some days 3. Same thing in North India also, we had a reception monitor who used to monitor the signal and do that. So shortwave radio always has a bigger reach than either FM or medium wave.
Okay. So my last question is now, do you have any final special thoughts on World Radio Day that you'd like to share to our viewers?
Well, I think to me it looks radio is a gift God has given to the world. Especially since I belong to a community who believes the Creator God. I believe God has given the wisdom, and man, in his own limitation, whatever it is, has used it in order to propagate the good news to people who do not know God, and also to, for example, health education program. It's very difficult for a person to go from village to village and tell about how to take care of the health,
Health and all of things.
basic health needs and all. But through radio program, we can tell them, if you are suffering from a particular uh, disease, anemia or whatever, how you can overcome that. Some simple tips that radio. We used to also interview doctors to
Oh, okay.
on basic health, community health programs that we used to do, so that, and even at the time of calamities like tsunami and so the radio played a very crucial role in helping people to get out of the problem, and so radio is not just one sided, it has multifaceted uh, approach, I would say, because it can reach out to so many different situations, like calamities, maybe like people who are, even the blind people, for example,
Yeah.
who cannot read and write. And we used to have a program for the blind where we used to produce, and there are many blind people used to listen to that radio program. So my message at the World Radio Day is to say that radio is still alive, though it has taken a different form
Yeah.
than we were used to, with shortwave or medium wave or FM. Now you have internet radio. We have different other means of communication through which the same message can be passed on.
Yeah. Yeah, and with that said, that officially brings us to the end of today's show. A huge thank you to Mr. James for joining today's show.
Thank you.
With that said, that officially brings us to the end of today's show. A huge thank you to Mr. James for
Thank
joining
you.
today's show.
Yeah.
And remember, guys, we air on Mondays at 4:30 p.m. With that said, if you guys have any questions, have anything, any comments regarding the show, please do reach out to us at 6364252164. And a huge thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this edition of The Reality Bang, your weekly dose of youth power, brought to you by FEBA Online. This is RJ Yohann. Hope you have an amazing week, and I'll see you next Monday. God bless you.